For pretty much as long as 360 cameras have been around, the pretty much undisputed leaders have been GoPro and Insta360. This past week I got to test out a completely new competitor on the market, and that is the QooCam 3. And I was honestly pretty freaking surprised how this camera performed. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about all of the specs and features of this thing, give my personal opinion on its performance, and compare it to other similar cameras on the market. And the goal by the end of this video is to give you a much better idea of whether or not you wanna buy it. Let's do it. Now, QooCam has made 360 cameras in the past. They have a super expensive 8K 360 Enterprise Edition, but this is the first time they're really stepping down to the consumer market. To start off, I just want to talk about the camera itself. Then later on in the video, we'll go out, we'll test it, we'll give you guys a bunch of examples of footage. And finally, I'll bring the footage back here, talk about the post-production workflow, and then I'll give my final thoughts on the camera. So first off, the camera itself. So the camera itself pretty much looks similar to the GoPro Max with its staggered lens shape. You can kind of see there's one lens here and one lens down here. And I'm gonna spend most of the time in this video comparing it to the Insta360 X3, just because that's the most current kind of competitor on the market. The GoPro Max is from 2019, so the new X3 is a much better comparison. As far as the build itself, it feels pretty dense. It's a little bit heavier than other 360 cameras that I've had. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because it just makes it feel a little more sturdy and more durable. This thing has a few super simple controls. So first off, you have just the mode button and then the record button, and that's pretty much it as far as physical buttons. And then once you turn it on, you have a pretty simple screen as well. So the screen, similar to other 360 cameras, is a touch screen. You can see myself right here. You can pick what lens this screen displays. So you can either pick that lens or the one back here. But the controls are super simple. You change modes right here and you change all your settings there. This thing is also waterproof up to 33 feet, which is super dope to see. As far as specs go, it has dual 1 by 1.5 inch sensors and an aperture of f1.6. It shoots 5K 30 or 4K 60. Just comparing it to the Insta360, the Insta360 has half-inch sensors and an aperture of f1.9. Those things aren't crazy important. The most important thing is obviously how the video looks. And on the photo side of things, this shoots photos at 62 megapixels, which is pretty freaking crazy. And then lastly, I want to talk about pricing because that's actually a big advantage that this camera has, coming in at $349. And that's just for the camera itself. And that's actually $79 cheaper than just buying the Insta360 X3. And then if you want to get the bundle of this camera with a selfie stick, an SD card, and an extra battery, it's going to cost $389, which again is much cheaper than the Insta360 alternative at about $110 cheaper. You might think that that means the quality is much worse, and I probably would have thought that as well, but was honestly pretty surprised. So next up, let's actually take this thing out and get filming. So most of the time here, I'm shooting 5.7K 30, and this was shot on an older firmware, so even just in the past week, the video footage has gotten noticeably better. But even so, the footage is pretty solid. The camera does struggle a bit in brighter light, but that's just sort of the nature of 360 cameras. And the footage that you're seeing now has been edited to fit your screen, but in reality, it's a massive 360 video. While I was out on the ride, I took a few 360 photos, and here are some screen grabs of those right now. Before we hop over to the editing, I want to show you some footage that I shot in a much better lighting scenario. Because when the camera is in super bright lighting like on the motorcycle, it almost has this a little bit over sharpened look, but when you're shooting in a proper lighting environment, it looks much better. All right, so now you've kind of seen the footage. Let's go back to the computer and the phone and talk about the post-production workflow. All right, so now we're gonna get into the post-production workflow. So I have my clips here. They're in the QooCam. Basically how the clips are gonna show up in the SD card is it's gonna be 3 clips. It's gonna be one that has both. It's just like a low resolution preview. So I'm gonna open up QooCam Studio, head back to my clips. So I'm gonna take this clip of me walking through the forest, and I'm gonna just drag it over to the import file. Okay, so as you can see, I have a giant, beautiful thumb on the lens right now. I think it was just when I was hitting record. But the controls are honestly super, super simple. And as far as editing, this is what I would do just to get set up. The first thing is you're gonna wanna go from panorama to reframe, because reframe is really where you're gonna have the flexibility in your 360 footage. Basically, you have reframe, and panorama is basically just, it shows the entire clip, but we don't want that because we wanna be able to reframe. So, coming in here, you basically have a couple important controls over here, one of them being horizon steady, and that'll just lock off your horizon so it's level. View lock steady, that just means that it's gonna stabilize the footage. This stuff, you don't really need to worry about it. You can do defringe, you can do a little bit of color correction, or you can do optical flow. I don't usually do those, but the important thing here is just being able to add keyframes. And if you've edited videos before, you know what keyframes are, but if not, you're basically just telling the footage to look in this direction at this specific time. So at this specific time, I want the footage to be right on me. So I'm gonna click this button here, keyframe, boom. And then as I walk, I want it to, let's say, rotate around to the forest in front of me. So if I go like this, I just add another keyframe, and then right here, you can see between those 2 points, it'll just rotate around. And the stabilization on this camera is actually quite good. Let's say I want this to rotate back to me, and I'm walking around, boom. Let's see what I'm doing. Still walking, still just walking, but you guys kind of get the point. The only other kind of important controls are these ones, which is basically kind of different modes of viewing. To use those, you're gonna have to delete these keyframes just because it kind of messes up the video. So I'm just gonna go back and do that real quick. Okay, so we have no keyframes. We're back to this spot. Let's actually go a little bit further into the video. And basically this, it's almost like you're inside a cylinder. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what the name is, but it just keeps stretching your video like that, which kind of actually makes a cool effect. And then this one right here is Tiny Planet, which you definitely have seen if you're looking into 360 cameras. It's just this really cool effect that makes it look like you're on a tiny planet. Then this one is kind of similar, but you're actually on like a globe that's like floating around in space, which I think is kind of cool. And then this one, you basically just can't zoom out super far. So it basically keeps it in a certain field of view. But that's about it for the studio software. So now I'm just gonna open my phone real quick and talk about the post-production if you just wanna do it on your phone. All right, so I'm gonna open up QooCam 3 app. I'm gonna turn the camera on, boom. And then I'm gonna press this button in the center to connect to the camera. Eventually you're gonna get the option to join the Wi-Fi network. You will get connect success, and then you can get the view of your camera. So these controls are incredibly simple as well. Up here you have your settings, so you can change your settings, 4K 60, 5.7, 30. You can change other settings in here. But the important thing that I just wanna cover is the post-production. So I'm gonna go into the album. You can see I just have one photo there. You have to download everything before you edit it. And then I have these few videos. All right, so this is just a quick video that I took in here that I have pre-downloaded. And I'm just gonna talk about these controls here. So key point is just like the keyframes that you saw before. So if I want the camera to stay right here at this point, press that, then I move it forward, move it around to here, press key point. You can just keyframe the whole way. Another feature that they do have is tracking. So I'm gonna go right here, hit Smart Track, start, and it's just going to track whatever's in that box. You kind of have to adjust it, you kind of have to go throughout the video and make sure it stays on that subject, but it's similar to what GoPro and Insta360 have. Projection is just the mode. So if you want Tiny Planet or any of those other modes, you just come in here. Tiny Planet does not work indoors because there's no sky. So you get these funky results. But then lastly, we just have the speed. So then when you're ready, you just hit export, and you can either export directly to social media or you can download to your album. So again, this software has pretty much all the controls that you would need, but I do expect it to get much, much better as we go along. So So now I want to get into my final thoughts about the camera. And my final thoughts are this. I think it is a really solid camera that just needs a little bit of work on the software side. The software just doesn't have all the features like GoPro and Insta360 do. But although the software is a little bit harder to use and doesn't have all of those features, this is a brand new product, so it really does make sense, and it's only going to get better over time. Like I mentioned before, just in the span that I was testing this camera, they updated the firmware and the video quality got noticeably better. And as far as even where the video quality is at now, it's really solid. It's actually pretty comparable to the Insta360 X3, except in extreme lighting conditions like super low light or super bright conditions. And that brings me to one of the most important things, which is price. If you're someone looking to spend a little bit less on a 360 camera, but you still want really good quality, this is a great option for you. But I would love to hear all of your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. You saw the footage, I'd love to hear from you. And if you guys could do me a massive favor and hit the like button down below, it honestly helps the channel out a ton and allows me to make more videos like this. If you hit the like button, I will put a really cute picture of a baby giraffe at the end of this video. But only if you hit the like button. There's still time. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.